Hello lovely people, and welcome to this session that is all about iron deficiency. My name is Dr. Libby. I live in Australia and I'm very, very happy to be here to talk to you about something that I can talk about underwater. So iron deficiency is the most common nutritional deficiency in the world, and we're going to dive into a really special ingredient that is making a really big difference in people's blood test levels and also how they feel. So please know that what I share with you today is purely for education. I'm certainly not here to prescribe anything, and what I share is not a replacement for medical information, and you'll all be very relieved that I'm not going to sing or dance. So earlier this year I actually wrote my 14th book called Fix Iron First, the one thing that changes everything. And I wrote that because my background is in nutrition and dietetics, and I have a PhD in biochemistry. So there's three pillars to my work: biochemistry, nutrition, and also mindset. And I wrote the book because I felt that it was time that we brought iron deficiency back to the very elevated position it needs to be in, given that it is the most common deficiency in the world. There are lots of nutrients right now that I think are getting a lot of limelight. Magnesium, for example, vitamin D. Everyone knows how important it is to have enough protein, creatine. So these nutrients tend to have their moments in the sunshine. But the problem with that is we're forgetting this really crucial one, which obviously is iron. So I wrote my book, Fix Iron First, because I feel that there is so much happening in the world that people are attributing to other things, when quite often it can be very straightforward iron deficiency and it's being missed. So, for example, a symptom of iron deficiency is anxiety, and there are many roads that lead us to feel very anxious, but one of them is iron deficiency, and there's a tendency right now for people to go down a purely psychological road when it comes to anxious feelings. Yet a study was published in 2023 called The Psychiatric Manifestations of Iron Deficiency Anemia, where the researchers found that so many symptoms like anxiety, depression, and another condition called ahedonia, which is the inability to feel pleasure. The vast majority of people who'd been diagnosed with those conditions actually had a degree of iron deficiency. Some had full-blown anemia, the most severe form, and when that was corrected, their psychological symptoms either improved dramatically, or for some they even resolved. So there are many, many reasons why I want to sing it from the rooftops, and I wrote this manifesto at the start of the book, which I'll share with you now just before we get to the ingredient, just to really, I guess, bring home the importance. So that iron deficiency is the most common nutritional deficiency globally is utterly unacceptable to me, and part of my inspiration is to bring this topic back to the forefront of conversation so that there's far less unnecessary suffering for people in the world. Too many people live knowingly or unknowingly with iron insufficiency or deficiency, not always aware of the far-reaching consequences of tolerating this deficit. And you'll be reminded today, in the brief time I have with you, how low iron is linked to anxiety for people at any age, right through to significantly contributing to a challenging perimenopausal transition, thyroid issues, brain fog, lousy energy, and an almost endless array of additional signs and symptoms, too often attributed to other causes. Beyond this, though, I want to awaken a movement globally to resolve iron deficiency, particularly for children. So whether they're children with attentive parents who don't know that their youngest is iron deficient, or children from hard places who go to school hungry each day, who have little food security, to those in developing countries with little to no access to iron-rich foods. The tragic impacts of iron deficiency on childhood development are very well known, and through my work I seek to elevate the importance of resolving this globally. So some of the far-reaching consequences, I bring these to your attention now, just so you can see that I think when we think about iron deficiency, we think about lousy energy, and yet it's so much more than that. So I care about iron deficiency for the child who doesn't eat or sleep well, and that's because his iron deficiency impedes his ability to do both of those things. So for people working with young children, for people for whom that's their focus, whether they're healthcare workers or just simply parents, if people knew that iron deficiency contributed to how a child eats and sleeps, it would change the game when you think about how difficult mealtimes is for a lot of families these days. I care about iron deficiency for the teenage girl whose hair is falling out and who falsely believes she has anxiety when both are symptoms of iron deficiency. It's actually been fascinating for me working with teenage girls who they are often not that motivated to make a difference for themselves. It's not until their hair starts falling out that they go, oh, yeah, I'll do something now. So and we know it falls out because the part gets wider. That's how we know their hair is thinning. Another reason to care about iron deficiency is for the athlete. So obviously the raw material I'll talk about has great application as well in athletic fields. So if I care because the athlete who trains really hard and has dedicated their life to excellence, they keep getting sick and they feel really sad, and it's all because of low iron. I care for the 30-year-old who has very heavy periods, a double-edged sword, because that both causes and is contributed to by iron deficiency. So when people are working in areas of women's health, obviously iron deficiency is another key consideration in a product suite you might offer. Then there's the postpartum woman who doubts herself and she's missing her resilience that she treasured so much, and she doesn't know that she's iron deficient. So another area of women's health. The perimenopausal woman whose transition through perimenopause is incredibly debilitating, and yet iron deficiency might be driving 60% or even more of her symptoms, as you come to understand the vast impact that iron deficiency has on everything from detoxification. We literally require iron to be able to make thyroid hormones. So we don't make as many thyroid hormones when we're iron deficient. And that makes perimenopause obviously far more difficult. It might be that the person has an underperforming thyroid and all of its lousy consequences, and that could be reversed if the iron deficiency was corrected. And then when we think about the ripple effect of all of this and its impact on people's quality of life, there are so many people who wonderfully don't have a disease, but they're just walking around feeling like life is very uphill. Their quality of life is enormously impacted from lousy energy, from lousy sleep, from a sense that there's not enough resilience. And I'm not saying that iron deficiency can fix all of those things, but it certainly makes our experience of life we feel far more robust, physically more robust, and mentally more robust and resilient when we have robust iron levels. So let me introduce you to SloIron, which is a truly groundbreaking raw material that I've had the pleasure of working with for the last little while. And I think if there truly was a holy grail of supplements, it would be a raw material that provided iron that was highly bioavailable and didn't cause any of the gut-related side effects that are so common with conventional iron supplements. I have met, having worked with patients one-on-one for 25 years, you meet people who that they know they're iron deficient, but they don't want the solution, which might be an iron salt or an iron chelate, because of the gut-related symptoms. They're so uncomfortable, particularly constipation. So let me introduce you to SloIron, which is a very unique form of iron called ferritin iron that is extracted from legumes. It's extracted from peas. So again, just to reiterate why this matters so much, a study was published last year showing that about 55% of women experience some degree of iron deficiency. So there's different layers to it, different levels: depletion, deficiency, and then full-blown iron deficiency anemia. It obviously affects athletes and a growing number of children, with 75% of infants and about 25% of toddlers not eating enough iron. So there is a great need for highly effective iron supplementation that doesn't come with side effects. So the ferritin iron from the legumes, if you can imagine, the way ferritin is like a protein cage. So the way plants, and in this case the legumes, and also the way humans, the way we store iron inside of us is inside a little cage called ferritin, which is a protein cage. And inside a ferritin protein cage, there can be up to 4,500 units of iron stored in a little ball shape. We don't need to worry about the detail of that if you want to know it. If you're geeky like me, it's called ferrohydrite. And one of the remarkable things about it is that the majority bypasses degradation by stomach acid. And so it then arrives, imagine it's a ball with the iron inside of it, it arrives at the gut cell surface. And it's absorbed through its own unique absorption mechanism, completely different from heme and non-heme iron. So it's absorbed, the name of the absorption process is receptor-mediated endocytosis. And so imagine that the gut cell almost reaches out and engulfs the little ferritin cage with all the iron inside it and takes it inside. the beauty of that, and I'll come to the big difference with the conventional supplements in a moment, but the beauty of that is that the iron is now inside the cell, but it's not touching the cell. It's protected by the ferritin cage. We know that if a gut cell is exposed to free iron, it drives inflammation and oxidative stress, and it's one of the big reasons that there can be side effects from conventional iron supplements that do expose the gut cell to that free iron. The other wonderful thing about ferritin iron is that it's not dependent on copper to get it out of the gut cell and deliver it to the blood. It is delivered straight to the blood and then straight to the total iron pool. And then once the iron is in what's called the total iron pool, the body then prioritises where it sends the iron to the bone marrow to make new red blood cells, to make thyroid hormones, wherever it needs to go. So that is one of the great gifts of ferritin iron, is its unique absorption mechanism, and it doesn't rely on what's called a little truck, a little transporter, or a truck if you want to imagine it that way, that sits on the surface of gut cells called DMT1. It's the thing that is needed to absorb the conventional iron supplements, and I will explain in a second why that's such a problem. So you can see here, I'll use my pointer, you can see here the ferritin, the iron's inside the ferritin cage, and it is absorbed straight through, remaining as ferritin to be delivered as iron to the total iron pool. Heme iron has its own mechanism of absorption where it's still got to be altered before it gets here. And then non-heme iron is this pathway, and it has a lot of hurdles for absorption, beyond just the requirement of popping it with vitamin C, for example. So we need iron to produce neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin and GABA, and I want to shout that from the rooftops so that everyone understands that mood is affected. That's the study I mentioned about the psychiatric manifestations of iron deficiency anemia, so it's an easy one to go and look up if you're interested. And then, of course, the thyroid hormones. We need iron to produce thyroid hormones in the first place, and also to be able to convert inactive thyroid hormone, which is called T4, into active thyroid hormone, which is T3. Then, of course, as I said, the perimenopausal transition can be far more difficult when all of that is not working properly, when iron is not in great supply. So it's partly why I called my book Fix Iron First, because we want to do that, and then let's see what's left over. There might not be too much more that needs addressing. Exercise is another big area. So again, if that's an area where you're looking to create supplements, it's making sure that people are getting enough iron in a highly bioavailable form, like SloIron, can be a terrific win. We actually know that athletes need 70% more iron than the stock standard RDI because of all the different ways that they actually lose iron. Athletes typically lose iron through what's called Fuchs strike hemolysis, so that repetitive banging of their feet on the ground can actually break open red blood cells. They can also lose some blood when they're doing endurance type training from the urinary system and also from the digestive system. And then, of course, inflammation is one of the big disruptors to iron absorption. The liver makes a little compound called hepcidin, and when there's inflammation coming from anywhere, including post-exercise, those inflammatory markers start to elevate and iron absorption can be blocked. So timing of the dose of an iron supplement is important to do it before exercise, but it's also another reason why so many athletes need more iron than they really realise. I won't go through all of the RDAs, but they're listed out there for you. You're welcome to take a photo of that, of course, just to show how much we actually need. And you can see the significant demands as girls hit their teenage years. Up it goes to 15 milligrams a day. Women across the menstruation years need 18 milligrams a day. This is just to prevent deficiency, and pregnant women need 27 milligrams a day. But even from childhood onwards, the requirements are significant, and too many children, as I said in my opening, are just not getting enough. So let's make some distinctions now between conventional iron supplements and SloIron, and why it truly does make such a difference. And then I'll give you some real life case studies of people who've been using it in a product I've developed, and we'll see the difference. So a conventional iron supplement is obviously iron bound with a salt or a chelate. And when we swallow that, the stomach acid has to split that apart. So number one, it relies on stomach acid production. But when the stomach acid does split the iron itself from what it's bound to, you have now generated what's called free iron. So that free iron then continues on its journey, and once it reaches the small intestine and it's exposed, it reaches the surface of a gut cell. On the surface of that gut cell is where the little transporter, imagine it like a truck, called DMT1, that's where that sits, and the iron has to hop on the back of that to be taken inside the cell. But DMT1 is responsible for absorbing all sorts of other minerals as well, like zinc and calcium. And so it's why with conventional iron supplements you're told that you have to separate a calcium supplement, for example, or a zinc supplement from an iron supplement, because they all compete for space on the back of the truck and they can't hop on the back of the truck together. Only one of them can be there. So it's really miraculous when you think about it. But anyway, so when the iron hops on the back of the DMT1, if it's lucky enough to get a position, it's driven inside the cell. So imagine the high dose that typically comes with those iron salts or chelates. Lots of free iron is generated from that. Inside it goes. That whole gut cell is then exposed to that free iron, which is very inflammatory, drives the production of reactive oxygen species, so that oxidative stress. And I'm sure that that is contributing to the gut symptoms, particularly the constipation. But what I want you to appreciate with the sort of mental image I've created inside your mind is the iron, this is coming from the old school conventional supplements, is still inside the cell. We don't want it in the gut cell, we need it in the blood so it can get to the total iron pool and go where it needs to go. It's still inside the gut cell, and we need an enzyme that is completely dependent on copper to come along and actually take the iron out the back door of the gut cell and deliver it to the blood. And so for some people, they might be taking big doses of conventional iron supplements. Some are 120 odd milligrams, which is huge, and there's no copper with it. So that in itself is a big problem. Whereas the big difference, obviously, with SloIron is when you swallow the ferritin iron, it's not reliant on stomach acid, firstly, for absorption. Very little is degraded by the stomach acid, and then that ferritin cage with the iron inside it is what is actually delivered to the gut cells. And then through that receptor-mediated endocytosis, so imagine it just grabs the whole little ball, the ferritin ball with the iron inside, takes it inside the gut cell's not exposed to that free iron, and it's not dependent on copper for getting out the back door. It's straight to the blood, straight to the total iron pool, and can then do its work. So there's not inflammation, there's not that oxidative stress, it's partly why it is so highly bioavailable, is that unique absorption mechanism. So this is the product that my team and I spent 8 years trying to develop an iron supplement that was highly bioavailable and didn't cause side effects. And my supplement company is called BioBlends, and the big difference for us is we make everything from food. So I am ridiculously painful to work with in that sense. There's no synthetic substances in my products, it's all made from food. And when we found SloIron, it was a crazy gift because it ticked every one of my boxes. And then, of course, we put it to the test in people before we actually developed our supplement. And it's working unbelievably. So this is a little video I would love to play for you. It's about 50 seconds and it explains the mechanism. Are you able to play that? Or
Iconic Iron is the only iron supplement of its kind. What makes it unique? So much, but mostly it's the type of iron it contains. It's called ferritin iron and it's sourced from organic peas. Unlike ferrous and ferric iron, the forms traditionally used in supplements, ferritin iron is encased in a natural protein shell. This protects the iron as it travels through your digestive system, allowing it to reach the gut wall intact. And this matters for 2 key reasons. The iron stays protected, which fosters a lovely gradual absorption, improving its bioavailability, so you get more from a lower dose. And because the iron stays protected, there's no irritation or other common side effects like constipation and nausea that many people experience with the usual iron supplements. So you can take it comfortably and consistently.
So we had that made to explain to people, to customers essentially, how different it is, how its absorption mechanism is completely unique. Because even for some health professionals, they're not even aware that there is this third form of iron. People are aware of heme iron, they're aware of non-heme iron, and ferritin iron is just not talked about enough, even though there is so much robust science in the scientific literature actually explaining its absorption mechanism. It's just not talked about enough. So I'm trying to change that, obviously. So here are some testimonials from some people who we released Iconic Iron back in May. And unsolicited, these are the sorts of things people write to us each week. Someone wrote, they worked for me, ferritin was 17. So the normal range for ferritin in the US is 12 to 150 nanograms per milliliter. Down under, it's 20 to 220 micrograms per litre, so the units of measurement are a bit different. But 17 is very low in both the US and also down under. So my ferritin was 17, and it had been in the low 20s for at least 15 years. This woman would have felt terrible. She took 2 Iconic Iron containing the SloIron, took 2 a day for 3 months, and she had her iron tested yesterday, and it was 86. Now, when I worked as a dietitian, nutritionist, it was extraordinary if someone's ferritin moved by about 4 or 6 units in 2 months on a stock standard iron, old school iron supplement, a salt or a chelate. You'd think, oh, how good, it's finally their iron is moving in the right direction. I have never seen results from any other iron supplement other than Iconic Iron, made with the SloIron, that moves the dial so significantly. Another one, the best results for my 16-year-old daughter, her ferritin went from 14 to 41. I feel like a weight is lifted. She'd been feeling so awful. Another one, my ferritin score was 14. Today, in September, after using Dr. Libby's iron for 2 months, my ferritin was retested and it's now 43. I'm so pleased. Another one, I have had low ferritin for 10 plus years and did not realise how much this was influencing my overall health. The prescribed synthetic form would nudge my levels, there it is, a measly 4 micrograms per litre. I have been on Iconic Iron for a month and my ferritin count has already doubled and my energy is more levelled and I experience greater clarity overall. Last one, my ferritin level was at 30 micrograms per litre. I took Libby's iron for 2 months. My ferritin is now 45. I will continue to take it for another 2 months and test again. The results speak for themselves. And I agree, the results actually speak for themselves, not only with people's blood work moving so significantly, but also they describe the difference in how they feel. So there's nothing more we want. And certainly for me as a health professional, what I care about is that it's making a difference on the inside of people's earth. I call it an earth suit, making a difference on the inside of people's bodies and to how they feel. Because when you think about a life with more energy in it, it impacts everything. Because when we're tired, we don't want to cook dinner, we don't want to exercise, it impacts our confidence in ourselves, the conversations we have with strangers and the people, as well as the people we love the most in the world. So the ripple effect of lousy energy, the ripple effect of low iron, I think is really major in society, and given it is the most common nutritional deficiency globally, it's really time we shouted this from the rooftops and brought its attention back to people's awareness. There's many published papers about the mechanisms of action of ferritin iron. You're welcome to look them up. They're all through the scientific literature. They're on the BioBlends website as well. And that's the title of my book, Fix Iron First, the one thing that changes everything. I have some copies with me, and at the end of this, I'll be up at the SloIron booth, which is booth 902, which is on level 2, doing a little book signing if you'd like to pop past. And of course, please come past and say hello if you have any questions about SloIron. Everyone at the booth, including myself, would be more than happy to answer them. So thank you for your interest in iron, and let's resolve it globally for as many people as we possibly can. Thank you for having me. Thank you.